You have clicked and scrolled and surfed your way to Behind the Buzz, a Public Fit Theater Company's occasional podcast where we chat about the myriad details that make up the creative process in our season of plays and staged readings. This is episode number 2 of season number 4, and today we'll be talking about the opening production of our 10th season, Paula Vogel's Indecent. Of course, we started off the season in fine form out at the library a few weeks ago with a stage reading of The Lifespan of a Fact by Jeremy Carrick and David Morrell and Gordon Farrell. But Indecent will be our first fully realized production of this, our 10th year. Joining me today, as ever, is APS Artistic Director Anne-Marie Pereth.
Hi, Joe.
And we're going to be talking about a lot of new today. In fact, joining us in a few minutes is a new addition to our ranks, serving in a new role. Leah Flowers serves as dramaturg for this production. We'll talk about just what that is and why it's so important for this play to have one. But first, and people are telling us that we're doing a musical, and that would certainly be new for APF. Is Indecent a musical?
I didn't think it was a musical when we started the rehearsal process, but I have to say now that I've gone through the process, yes, this is a musical. It's not a typical musical because there is a lot of spoken text, but in between the scenes, the connective tissue of the show, there are many songs that are sung and many dances that are danced.
Well, and the show itself, a lot of the scenes are actually underscored with music as well to sort of bring home that emotional punch.
Right, but having grown up, I've done a ton of musicals. That's where I got my start in theater. When you're rehearsing for a musical, if you don't have the musicians with you, which you don't typically do until right before the show opens, you have recorded tracks that you can rehearse to, where in this case, the music is so interweaved through the show that it's hard to have those tracks. You have to really have those musicians in the room with you in order to tell the story. So it's a difficult show to produce and direct.
Are you finding it too difficult? Is it time to quit? Did you?
It's not time to quit, but we've had some hard days.
Yeah.
But I feel like we're over the hump, and I can thankfully say that we're over the hump. But this is probably the most difficult show or production I have ever worked on.
Yeah, well, it's offered a lot of challenges, and I think we've identified a lot of those challenges pretty early on. Mm-hmm. It was just the sort of, seeing to how to overcome those challenges took a little bit of time. What was it about the play that originally, all those challenges, present themselves fairly early. We saw them all early. What was it about the play then that made you select it to slide it into the season?
Personally, or as an artistic director?
I think both. I mean, I don't. Do you really separate the two? I think.
Yes.
As an artistic director, really? I think as an artistic director, your personal.
Well, personally, as a director and not as an artistic director, I like to choose projects that are hard.
Yeah.
And that are not like the last project that I've done.
Yeah. And
that have a level of artistry that will inspire and challenge me. I also, because I am a dancer, and I like productions that have heightened movement, whether it's through song or dance, or the acting is, the choices with the acting is heightened.
Yeah.
Through movement. And so as a theater director, that's what appealed to me about the show. As an artistic director, Paula Vogel is an amazing playwright.
Pulitzer Prize winning playwright.
Yes, this show won many Tonys.
Yeah.
And one for directing. And yes, you need to have some directing chops in order to work on this show. And it was our 10th anniversary, and it's episodic. There's a lot of humor in this show. There's a lot of opportunity for artistry. it examines a particular culture that I wanted to invest in because of my own Jewish roots. And so I thought it was a good show for our season just because of the way the story is told.
What's it about?
Oh, well, it's about a lot of things.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you a synopsis, though.
Well, I'll just start by
Why
saying...
don't you do
Well,
the
I'll start.
synopsis?
It's based upon... I can't even say based upon a true story. It examines an historical event, and I think Leah will be able to really help suss this out when we really talk about it. But it discusses a first, sort of a first musical for us, but a first for Broadway. It focuses on a play that in the 1920s became the very first play to portray two women on stage and actually have an onstage kiss, a romantic kiss between two women. It was the first one to do that, and it was immediately shut down after that and banned. Hence the title Indecent. It was banned for
yeah,
indecency.
I like that the play is actually it's a play within a play,
Right.
right? So what
and Indecent is the story of that play. That play is not called Indecent. The play within the play
is called
God of Vengeance.
And it's 100 year. The play was shut down 100 years ago, which I didn't do that intentionally, but
Yeah.
I think that's there's some serendipity there. But I like that it's based on a true story. I like that it examines a lot of different themes like the Holocaust, immigration, censorship. It looks at love between two women, and it doesn't look at it in a sensual way, but more based on from a perspective
I think you misspoke. I think you meant sexual way, because I think it's a very sensual. Those
yes,
things
you're right.
Yeah.
It is sensual, but
Yeah.
it's not. I think anytime anybody says the word lesbians, everybody's like, "Ooh, lesbians,"
becomes
and everybody gets
prurient. Yeah.
everybody gets really titillated. And I think what the playwright God of Vengeance was trying to do was not to do that,
Right.
to actually examine the love and friendship and admiration between two women. And he did a beautiful job with God of Vengeance, and Paula Vogel recognized that, and she wanted to build upon that, especially because the play basically went out of existence because of it being banned in the 1920s because of those obscenity trials, and all the actors were convicted for indecent behavior.
Yeah.
So she took that play out of the darkness and brought it into the light, and then now 100 years later we get the opportunity to be able to look at the play and look at it through the lens of our own culture, which I think is necessary and actually kind of sad because of what's happening right now in Israel.
Yeah. So Indecent is a play about about myriad things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like the perfect sort of vehicle where you would need a dramaturg
Oh God.
to come in and lay out some
Yes.
of the Well, let's bring Leah into the conversation. She can tell us exactly what dramaturgy is,
Yeah.
what a dramaturg
We
is,
needed her to tell us
and
what
why
it
it was so
was.
necessary. Yeah, it was very helpful. So let me introduce Leah Flowers, who started her foray into theater at 6 years old when a production of Cinderella changed her life. She attended Las Vegas's Arts Magnet School, Las Vegas Academy, where she did some stage managing, some props mastering, various other behind-the-scenes gigs. And then she started writing, serving as the student arts critic for high school productions all around the valley. She worked on short films as a performer, writer, director, and editor for the students in the UNLV Film Department, and even spent a little time on stage for Nevada Conservatory Theater in their production of The Taming of the Shrew. And then she took a break from the stage for a while to travel the world with her husband, but then the pandemic reminded her of the importance of the arts, and she returned to UNLV, where she will graduate in December with a BA in Theater Studies. And then she plans to pursue a graduate degree in dramaturgy and hopes to eventually find work in European theater. Dramaturgy, we've spoken a little bit about that. Hey, Leah.
Hello.
What is dramaturgy? I'm still not 100% sure I know exactly what it is.
So what a production dramaturg does is does research to provide historical and social context for a play. And they assist the designers, actors, directors, anybody associated in understanding, the historical significance. Basically, we're just giving context.
Okay, so you serve as a resource for the crew and the production team and the cast.
Yeah, and when I'm in rehearsal, I'm able to give little notes on things that I know that maybe people forgot since reading the dramaturgy packet, or just things that weren't included in there that I think are interesting. Like one night I remember talking to Jake about, because he plays Lemmel, and I was talking to him about the scene where Lemmel is coming in through Ellis Island and the entire process that they go through. And it was fun for me to nerd out anyway, and to talk to him about all of the physical examinations, all of the questions that they're asked, things like that.
The packet that you presented for this production is huge. Just the sheer amount of information that you had to collate. How did you graduate the importance of topics and choose which was worthwhile to be looked at? I mean, you could look at the scope of this play is the very early 1900s all the way up through the 50s. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty big historical era. How did you pick and choose what was important to include in your dramaturgy packet?
That was tough.
Yeah, I can imagine.
That was tough to do. I did a lot of research, and I would start falling down a rabbit hole, and then I would always stop and say, how will this actually be applied? Because everything I wanted to research and include could be applicable and usable to the actors and designers. So I wanted to make sure that it's not just something that's interesting to me, which sure, I can read about Vilna for hours and be interested in that, but what do the actors need to know? Because there's just one or two lines about Vilna in the play.
Sure.
So I just give a little blurb about that kind of thing, and I try to find that balance to make sure there's just not too much for people to have to wade through. What
makes this is going to sound horrible. What makes you different from Google?
Oh,
because any question that I have about a play or historical time, I could Google it.
I can answer that. Google could take you off in a direction that could waste your time, whereas you have somebody who's focused on a particular task, and they bring all the information together for you, and that's highly valuable.
Well, and also a love and understanding of the play. I mean,
yes.
I was only half serious in asking that question. I know the value of a dramaturg, for crying out loud, but it sounds like it's just a lot of collating of information. But you're saying it's much more than that. Also,
from my observation of Leah as a person, is she loves to research, right? And also her way of synthesizing information and also analyzing the play. She's creating a process for herself and for the actors that's going to be efficient, because we only have a limited amount of time in order to incorporate that information into the rehearsal process.
Right.
Where if actors are having to research things on top of creating the artistry in the production, they could get off track and not manage their time.
And before we started today, you and Leah were talking about a packet that's been put together now that we're going to post online for anybody who's interested in accessing some of this research material as well. Is that right?
Yes, for the audience, because things happen so quickly for audience members. They may only get a mention of a reference, and so after a show or a production of most plays, people have questions. I know when I go to see a play, I often will leave the production and go and research things, and she has all that research, a lot of that research that most audience members will ask, and she's going to put that together in a packet or a study guide so that they can access that in the program or through the website.
Where can people find that online?
At our website. Is that what you're asking? publicfit.org?
Yes, that's what I'm asking. and it'll be easy to find. It'll be up there and easy to find. So what else is coming up at A Public Fit for this, our 10th season? Well, we've been talking about Paula Vogel's Indecent. That show opens October 27th and runs for 4 weeks to November 20th over at the Super Summer Studio Theater, 4340 South Valley View. Music and dance and laughter and tears Get your tickets now at publicfit.org. Oh, and so much more. Here's a quick rundown. After Indecent, it's back to the library in January for a reading of Dominique Morisseau's Pipeline. Our second main stage show, we mentioned it a little earlier, X by Alistair McDowell, takes us back to the Super Summer Studio Theater in February and then back to the library in March for Lauren Gunderson's outrageously funny Exit Pursued by a Bear. Our final main stage show will be presented in association with Vegas Theater Company. Dancing at Lunasa by Brian Friel will be presented back downtown at the Art Square Theater in April. And finally, The Pavilion by returning champion Craig Wright will close out our 10th season with a stage reading in June back at the Flamingo Library. If that's too much to remember, a quick visit to publicfit.org should make everything clear. Of course, stay tuned to upcoming episodes of Behind the Buzz for even more information and even more conversations. We'll be talking with performers and directors, designers, and I think we're going to get another playwright or two. What's that process like, Leah, putting together a huge packet for such a broad time period? Or are you really constricting yourself to what the play demands?
Well, I let myself kind of roam free, and there's sort of a rough draft process where I'm just like recording everything I think is interesting and going down different pathways that I think are interesting. And I got really into listening to a lot of podcasts about it. There's just so much information, and the play is so historically dense and so rich with like cultural references and music, that, you know, I just let myself run with it, and then I started to like boil it down and put together what I thought was most useful.
Well, and you were given it's a pretty big task, because you're not really just researching one play. You're researching two plays. You had to research not just Indecent and all of the cultural aspects of that show. You had to go and look at its
twin.
Yeah, it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's inspiration.
Right.
The God of Vengeance. Is it the God of Vengeance or just God of Vengeance?
It is the God of Vengeance. The
God of Vengeance. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You leave prepositions off of all your titles.
I do.
You do. It's a problem. You need to seek preposition therapy.
I know. I'm anti-preposition.
Well, get on the train, woman. Prepositions are the future.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I apologize.
Yes, pronouns are a thing of the past. It's now prepositions we're going to have the fight about. So the God of Vengeance, I'm sorry, that was completely off topic. Leah, you had to sort of look at two plays, the God of Vengeance and Indecent. Are they on the same footing, the same scale, the same level in terms of quality of theater, or did you find one more appealing? Was one have a different emotional impact than the other? How do they compare?
Oh gosh, they're both wonderful in their own way. I think I don't think they're that similar, because the God of Vengeance is not episodic. You know, it has more of a narrative flow to it. And we are only focusing on a small number of characters in that, you know. So,
right, yeah.
So with Indecent, you know, we have 7 actors, and they're all everybody but the guy who plays Lemuel is playing like 6 different people or more.
Yeah.
So they're both really interesting, and as far as like emotional impact, they both make me cry.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, with Indecent, even just the first time I heard the synopsis, I cried, because it just seemed like the idea, I mean, I don't really want to spoil it, but how the ending comes about, like how it's presented, was just so touching, you know, to me, that I couldn't help it. And I am a bit of a softie anyway. But with the God of Vengeance, I think I was really moved by so many things, but particularly Jekyll's journey from being someone who feels like he's just this lowly sinner, and he's really trying so hard to be a better person and to find like salvation through his daughter. And I think especially a lot of girls who have complex relationships with their fathers can identify with that, and it's a timeless play. So
you're talking specifically now about the God of Vengeance. Can you give me a synopsis of that play? We know that Indecent is a play about that play, and we'll talk more about the themes of Indecent, because there are many. There are just a lot of themes in that play. But just give me a synopsis of of the god of vengeance. You mentioned Jekyll and his daughters, and I want to let the listeners know exactly what you mean when you talk about Jekyll and his relationship to his daughter.
Okay, so The God of Vengeance is about Jekyll, who is a Jewish brothel owner. His wife Sarah is an ex-prostitute, and their daughter Rivkala is like pure, and they want her to remain pure. They want to marry her off to a rabbi's son. Like, they sort of view her as like their salvation. And unfortunately for them, Rivkala falls in love with Manka, who is one of the prostitutes who works for Jekyll, and they run away together and end up actually working for Jekyll's competitor, Shloime.
This play about two women in love was written in 1903, is that right?
I think it's 1906.
1906.
Yeah.
1906. Oh, I'm thinking 23 because that was when it was on Broadway. It was 1923. But it was written in 1903 or 1906.
Yeah.
Wrong again. 1906. That seems like a pretty early date to be exploring themes such as the purity of lesbian relationships.
Yeah, I think what is interesting about the playwright Sholem Asch is that he really wanted to show complex people. He wasn't interested, at the time there was the Yiddish Renaissance that was going on. He was part of that. And they were all sort of, and it is reflected in Indecent too, where they're like, can we just make sure that the Jewish person is an upstanding version of himself on the stage? That's what we want to present because there's anti-Semitism in the world. And he pushed really hard against that. And he said, no, we're human. We some of us are pimps and prostitutes. And he wanted to show that. And I think that that's what makes this play timeless and relatable now, is because he's just dealing with real struggles of people. So yeah, I don't know where he got, that inspiration, but he was just sort of a person that didn't really take direction like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If someone said, can you not do this? He's like, no, I'm going to do it if I think it's right. Because even toward the end of his career, he started writing books where he was trying to see if he could find a balance between, or similarities between, Christianity and Judaism, and to sort of say, like, see, we're not that different. In his novel, he wrote a series of novels like about Mary, and I think there was one about Jesus. And the Jewish community really, really did not like that and pushed against him, and were kind of ostracizing him by the end. But he still, he followed his own drummer. He said, no, this is what I think it's important to talk about. These are the stories I want to tell.
You told me that we need plays in Yiddish which are universal.
Plays that represent our people as valiant, heroic, virtuous.
Why must every Jew on stage be a paragon? You are representing our people as prostitutes. And pimps, some of our people are.
You are pouring petrol on the flames of anti-Semitism. This is not the time.
When? When will be the right time?
Is it true that he wrote exclusively in Yiddish? Or did he...
that I can't answer. I know that he wrote mostly in Yiddish, and I'm not sure if he wrote in English at all.
Right, I don't think he ever wrote anything in
I know
English.
That he wasn't very good at speaking English.
Right,
so
well, that's actually a part of the play. He complains that we should say that Sholem Asch is a character in Indecent, obviously, and one of the, I think, key emotional moments in the play is his admission that he does not feel comfortable letting people know his poor use of English and his poor speaking skills.
I mean, because he had a really thick accent from where he was from, and when I watched videos of his grandson talking about his accent, he said that it would sort of be the equivalent of like an American, like sort of bumpkin accent, so he was embarrassed by that.
Oh, wow. Yeah, he did not like to present in public. In fact, at the trial, when his actors, his play and his production, his actors were put on trial for indecency in New York, he was a no-show as a witness. He did not testify.
Was there, in your research, because the way Paula Vogel has depicted Sholem in Indecent is that he's a character with a lot of regret because he allowed his embarrassment of his ability to speak the English language to interfere with protecting the cast. Did you find anything in your research where he struggled with that regret? Because that's what's presented in the play.
There was nothing I found specifically about that. I don't think I was looking specifically for something like that. I know that he preferred to express himself with writing. I think maybe he felt like he was more confident in getting his ideas across in that way. So I think even public speaking would have just, no matter if it was defending them or not, would have felt like something he didn't want to do.
That's interesting.
English! Speak English. Every time we are alone together, you persist in speaking Yiddish. My God, Raina, we are supposed to open this show in English next week.
I don't need your permission to speak Yiddish when we're in private.
Raina, we are the first generation that gets the chance our parents never got to tell our stories on American stages. We are moving uptown to the village, and I want you to go with me.
How do you feel? Do you feel that you just asked a very specific historical question, Anne-Marie? I'm wondering, Leah, how important you feel historical accuracy is to a production like Indecent.
So I think it's important to an extent. I think we should try to be as true to history as possible. And then there's going to be moments when fudging is necessary. And even Paula Vogel said that. She said that there were certain details where she fudged a little bit on the timeline or something like that. And I don't think it's wrong to do that. I think if it serves the story and the emotional impact you're trying to have, then it's okay to deviate a little bit. But I would hope that we try to stick with accuracy as much as possible.
With all of this history in this play, all of the firsts, the first kiss between two women on Broadway, I think it was the sort of first Yiddish play that was presented on Broadway, although it was presented in English. What's it about for you, Leah? I've asked Emery what the play was about. What is it about for you? Is it a play about theater? Is it a play about a play? Is it a play about the LGBT community? Is it a play about the pogroms during the 20s and 30s? Is it a play about Jews? Is it a play about the Holocaust? What's it about?
It is a play about many things. And I think what people will take away from it is that it's a play about how story is such a powerful tool to unite people.
Yeah.
Because if you're not part of the queer community, and if you're not Jewish, you can still appreciate and put yourself in the shoes of these characters. Because, one of the things that I thought was most interesting when reading the play, and I even ended up writing an essay for the website about it because it was so interesting to me, is why would people risk their lives to continue to put on theater when it is specifically banned for them to do so? And I think, to me, that is one of the most powerful messages, is that storytelling is so important to society. It's so important to people to feel connected and to come together to watch it live. That is a specific experience, unlike watching Netflix at home, which is still fun. But when you go to live theater, and this play touches on that, when you sit together, it belongs to all of you.
Well, there's a specific moment in the play towards the end of the production where the play has been banned in America, and it's sort of come back to Europe in its original Yiddish, and it's been banned in Europe for these for Jews to perform in public at all. So they're still gathering in small places, attics and basements and synagogues, to perform these plays and tell these stories to usually just a handful of people. And that's actually a moment in the play that's I think pretty touching. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Can I comment about the difference between like Netflix and maybe watching movies? So we had a particular staff member who came in to rehearsal the other day, and he is not part of the rehearsal process. And so this person was going through, they had a rough day. And so we had our first stumble through. And I have to say, the first stumble through, there was a lot of magic that was happening in the room. And I wasn't expecting that. Mm-hmm. Our intention actually was not to stumble through the whole show. We were only going to stumble through the first 2/3 of the show and then work on the last third. But they were so on fire that I looked at the stage manager on about page 42 and I just said, just let them keep going because they have so much momentum.
Caught them by surprise too.
Yeah, it caught us all by surprise, and it was just lovely. And I didn't look back at him, but I could feel that he was getting emotional. And there were things that were fumbly because we're not ready to open. You know, we still have 2 weeks. And I talked to this person afterwards, and he said, you know, I just needed to come into a space and be inspired and share the struggles with the actors. And even when they were trying to figure things out because certain things weren't polished, there was something just really exciting about watching them work those pieces. And then the pieces that were really hitting on all cylinders, he was so moved that he was crying. And I think that is what theater does. That's and especially in our theater, people are sitting so close that it almost has like a cinematic feeling because the bodies are so close to you that you can really feel their expressions and you can see the emotion in their eyes, even if it's really subtle. And, you know, to a certain degree, we're all very empathetic people. And so we have that experience of sharing that empathy or struggle or challenge. And it's important that we have our small communities where we can do that together because we need a break from our own struggles in our own lives. And it's nice to focus on an imaginary story that can kind of uplift us.
Yeah, I do think that theater can empower people. That is also part of the essay that I wrote, that there are instances throughout history where an oppressive government outlaws theater for a specific reason, because it does bring people together. And that's what they're trying, you know, if they're trying to oppress you, they don't want you banding together.
Dividing. They want to divide you. Yeah, so that they can take over your mind.
One of the most amazing things that I've seen come out of, you know, the Russia's invasion of the Ukraine is one of our local companies. The Asylum has partnered with a theater in Ukraine, and they're doing Zoom readings and Zoom productions back and forth across, you know, the ocean during this tumultuous time. It would not surprise me if we started seeing some of those same things coming out of Gaza.
Yeah, they're doing theater like in these bunkers and underground. Yeah. They're still putting on stories. Yeah, that's heartbreaking and remarkable at the same time.
But it, like you say, it speaks to the importance of those stories. It speaks to the importance of not just artistic expression, but the sharing of artistic expression, which is a different thing, right? The creation of the thing is one thing. Sharing it with a community, big or small, an audience, big or small, is something else entirely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
there's
agree.
There's a feeling of communion when you can come together and just listen, you know, to a story that's moving. You know.
Yeah, even Lemo breaks bread. In the attic right before they put on the story. The act of coming to the theater is like a form of breaking bread with the people, with your neighbors.
Every day, another stack of hate mail arrives. And I read every single letter. Jews, Polacks, take your filth back to your own country, dirty kikes. You pollute our stage. This is what we're up against.
Did you get a lot of requests, Leah, from the cast about questions they had specifically about either their character or their culture that they're playing, or there are 5 different languages expressed in this play. There are a number of songs, some in English, some in Yiddish, some in German. It's a remarkable melange of all sorts of cultures and historical moments. Did you get any odd requests and odd questions from the cast?
Not really, and I hope that's because I was quite thorough
in
my packet.
Yeah.
But I remember having a fun interaction with Nick, and he had asked me, what's an equivalent to like wow in Yiddish? And I spent half a day looking into that, which was a delight for me to be able to have an excuse to do some more research. And I found 3 options for him, and I explained like what each of them meant, and then I left it to him to choose. And
that's fun.
yeah,
What
it was
are
really
they?
fun.
Now I'm fascinated.
Oh gosh, I don't remember off the top of my head.
Oh, darn.
I'm going to be watching him closely the next rehearsal to find out where
I'm
he's
like, what
used
are
that
your 3
exclamation.
wows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what moments are you choosing to
I'm gonna
throw
call
out
him.
your Yiddish wow?
I'm gonna call him out tonight and ask him.
Well, you mentioned Nick. He's one of the actors who really took research to heart. I mean, he came in with videos of Sholamash, and he came in with an autobiography. He plays at one point in the play. He actually plays Eugene O'Neill, and he had an 800-page autobiography or a biography of Eugene O'Neill that he was looking at, so he could create that character. That is an actor who is really interested in the sort of work that you do.
Yeah, he was the one who told me, like, I love this so much. He was like, I love research as much as you do. And, to be fair, he plays a handful of real people. So it's really good that he's the one that you chose, because I could see through rehearsal how serious he took that, and how he was able to bring little things about each person to the table that I didn't even know. So that was really cool.
Yeah, Nick plays Sholamash. He plays Eugene O'Neill, as I mentioned. He plays a Yale student at the end who is trying to revitalize and reinvigorate the Yiddish theater world with a new translation of the play. And I think that's a historical character as well, John Rosen. I think he actually...
I didn't find that one, so you'd probably have to ask Nick, because he probably found it.
I'm sure he did. If that person exists, Nick probably called him and flew across the country
to
and
me
had coffee with him.
To me, that's the director, Rebecca, and just because of the context and the year that it was written, Paula changed it to a male. But that's Rebecca Teichman.
You think?
Yeah, because she went to Yale. Yeah, and she was researching... the obscenities trials, and she went to Paula Vogel and said, I want to turn this into a play. That's a composite character of her and maybe somebody else, but that's what it seems like to me.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
As I was sipping my melange at the Cafe Chrysler, a young Polish countryman approached me with such fresh energy and sincerity, traits that have almost perished in our cosmopolitan Berlin. That very night, I went home with his script, and I woke up with a fever to produce the God of Vengeance, to play this outcast, rejected by pious Jews, roaring at his maker. Ladies, gentlemen, I give you the playwright of this brilliant little play, Mr. Sholamash.
Thank you. Thank you.
You get stumped by any questions? Leah, did anybody stump you with one? I guess if you can come up with a Yiddish wow, you're pretty unstumpable.
Yeah, nobody stumped me on anything, and I'd be kind of sad if they did.
Fair enough. It says I said in your intro that you're looking to pursue an advanced degree in dramaturgy. Is that because of us, or was that something you were interested in before you came to work with us?
I will be honest that taking Anne-Marie's class really made me feel like I could do it. I think it was something that was always kind of in the back of my mind that I would like to do. And then as I was sitting there and we were just sort of discussing what a semicolon means in wit, I was just like, I love this so much.
For anyone who wants to listen to a 2.5, 3-hour podcast about what a semicolon means, you should refer to one of our earlier podcasts about punctuation in wit. One of our earlier.
It also comes
attempts.
up in my class.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was just so. It was like food for the soul for me. It was just so. Delicious. And I remember someone who's become my friend now, she was in the class with me, Sabrina. We would just talk about that kind of thing, and we were like, this is just so good, it's just like soul food, and I thought, like, yes, I would really love to go on and do this if there's a world where that's possible.
What would that, and forgive my ignorance, but what would that entail? What would achieving a graduate degree in dramaturgy entail? Would it just be doing it, or would you be given a toolbox to use of things that you haven't already sort of acquired yourself?
I do hope that I would get a much broader toolbox than I already have, because I do like research. I have, some knowledge of theater. I like history, so I listen to theater history podcasts all the time.
Oh, wow.
And I've got a big, theater history book that I'm making my way through. So I do hope that aside from just those contexts, they will give me further ways of being able to interpret theater, because part of the job of a dramaturg in some cases is to be the bridge between the audience and the production company to help the audience interpret what they're seeing, so
I could totally see you teaching theater history 1, 2, and 3 at a college, and also assisting many directors on many, many projects. You could just live in a research bath.
My dream come true,
I know. I could completely see you doing that.
Well, and you'll be back with us for our next main stage show.
Yes.
Alistair McDowell's X. You've already started the research on that one?
I have, and it's delicious too.
Oh yeah, but pretty much the same, right?
It's just like our show.
It's a Jewish musical that takes place on Pluto. Is that right?
Very far removed. It is a sci-fi horror, and it is set on a research base on Pluto. And when I first heard that, I was like, oh, what am I going to do? Because it's not history based.
Right. Well, that was going to be my question, because that might be a naive question too, is here you've got an entire culture to explore, the Jewish culture, the Yiddish language, the culture of theater in the ghettos of Poland in the 1900s, early 1900s, the early shows on Broadway, blah, 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 blah. And now you're in the future on Pluto. What do you research for that?
So again, I'm trying to keep it applicable. So I looked up, because the play has some sound elements, so I looked up specifically, because one of the characters says, I like to listen to the sounds of Pluto, and another character says, but there is no sound. And like, I know, but I like the nothingness. And I actually was like, well, I wondered, do we know what it sounds like on Pluto? And so I started doing some research, and we don't know what it sounds like on Pluto, but we have sound from Mars, and it is just sort of like a windy sound. Like that's what it is.
I
it's
just
wind.
saw that video.
Yeah, there's a new video that was just released like today.
Yeah.
And then when I thought about it, I looked up the atmospheric pressure of Pluto, and it is thinner than Mars, so it would be like an even fainter wind, potentially. And what was also interesting was in the play, she also talks about watching the mists on Pluto, and I thought, well, does Pluto have mist? I don't even know. So I looked it up, and actually, yes, whenever the seasons change, there is ice on one pole, and then it kind of melts into a mist, and it makes its way down to the other pole when the season changes. So
that's remarkable.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's super fun.
I wouldn't even know where to research, but the fact that you were curious in that way.
Well, NASA's a great resource, so I just go to their website, and they have a lot of sound recordings, mostly sonifications though.
Yeah, but I wouldn't have thought about. I haven't read the play with the level of depth that you and Jake have, but I wouldn't have thought to go that avenue. That's a credit to your ability to think in a certain way. So good for you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, and I do think that that's what the important function of a dramaturg is to be able to think, how is this applicable to theater specifically, to come at it with a theater mind but also a research mind.
Right, because you're not writing a paper.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
I mean, you are creating a study guide and you are creating a packet for the actors, but we're taking that information and giving it legs and bodies and it becomes a sculpture, a living sculpture that moves around, right? Yeah.
I was just thinking about a living sculpture that moves around. I think that's a pretty great descriptor of theater. And I was marveling at your Leah, your ability to find something about a sci-fi play that could involve you as a dramaturg. That seems like pretty good job security there.
I hope so.
in figuring out what's next after that.
Then I'm also doing Dancing at Lunasa, and I haven't started reading that yet, but I did meet up.
You have some time. That's in 2024.
I know we got time on that one. But when I had seen Lifespan of Effect, I was talking to one of the actors who has already been cast in Lunasa, and she was saying that she's going to go back to her she has family in Ireland, in the specific town where Lunasa takes place. And we were talking, and she said she'll do a recording of them just talking just as they do, and that will help with some of the dialect work. And, she said, let me know if you have any other research questions, because I'll look it up while I'm there. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like we've employed you for the season.
Yeah.
What, Emma, you want to talk about that? What made you decide that this was the year we were going to get serious about dramaturgy and really step up our dramaturg game?
Leah?
Yeah.
It was Leah that inspired me. We tried to do it before.
With varying degrees of success, not
yes,
certainly not as intensive as what's happening now.
Right, but in order to be a really successful dramaturg, you have to be dedicated to the mission, and you actually have to have a love for that work. Because it's time intensive. There's a writing component to it. You also have to have the ability to communicate well with others. There needs to be an openness to you. And I saw that in her in the classroom setting, and she was hungry for the project. And I thought, well, this is the time. It was because I met her, because she was a special individual, and I knew that she could do it.
Well, and I think it was a remarkably sage decision, especially on Indecent. I don't know anyone in the cast who isn't ridiculously appreciative of
Oh my
your
God,
work
even the
contribution.
glossary is like, oh, thank God
Talk about that.
Somebody looked up all these words, and then she did these links too, where you like hit the link and then you get the pronunciation. So now I have to just look at one document in order to get the pronunciation for so many of these words.
Leah, tell me about the glossary. What's the glossary?
So usually in a dramaturgy packet, you do want to include a list of like unfamiliar terms and, a little bit of research behind them, just so that people know what it is, so they can, when they're saying those words, they know what it means. And I had a lot of fun looking up things for this. There was the extra challenge that Yiddish is not that easy to access. And I ended up finding this Yiddish English lexicon website, and that was where I got most of it from. But sometimes, honestly, one of my sources was a Facebook page.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, where this woman was talking about, she had asked her father, because he was fluent in Yiddish, like what certain words meant, and then she had a list, and so I stole some of those.
Oh, wow.
Because
Do I need to give her program credit? Is there any chance of a lawsuit?
I doubt it, but that it was interesting. It was an interesting challenge because it wasn't straightforward. There isn't just like a Spanish to English version of that type of thing.
Sure. Huh. What's the weirdest, maybe that's the wrong word, oddest, strangest, most unique term in the glossary for you?
I know what mine is.
Yeah, I think actually I'm going to say Schwell, because it took...
Schwell.
Yes, that means threshold. And it took some research to get to that one, because I would look for it and it'd be like, are you trying to say shovel? And I'm like, no, you know. And so it took a little bit to actually find the correct word for it. But I also think it's such a meaningful word in the play.
I was going to say, it sounds like it could just be a throwaway, Schwell, but it's used 3 times in the play in very, very carefully selected moments. And I don't know if you need to talk about them. Do you want to talk about the moments, Emery, or you want to?
Well, there's the word Dybbuk, right, which means that could be like a lost soul or negative force that we can't see.
But we're talking about Schwell.
Yes, but it has to do with Schwell. And so Lemmel doesn't want to step over the threshold or the Schwell, because Schwell in the Jewish culture, they would put like icons, or even other like Middle Eastern cultures, they would put artifacts underneath their Schwell or around their Schwell to keep out the evil spirits. And in a moment in the show, in the story, Lemmel thinks that he's one of those evil spirits, and he doesn't want to corrupt Shalom Ash's home. And so Schwell becomes very, very important, and it gets mentioned several times, and I think Paula Vogel used that expression very decisively in the text. also, it gets brought up again at the very end of the play when the older version of Ash is confronted with that idea again. So it's an important word.
Mrs. Marger, we do not want to disturb your husband.
Lemuel, I didn't expect... Are you all right?
I've been better. The world spins on.
How long have you been here?
I wanted to see what the sunrise was like from Staten Island.
Come in, Lemuel. Come in, I'm putting on the coffee.
No, thank you. I do not want to step over your spell.
And I also like the kind of more whimsical word for stickina.
Oh, was that going to be your choice? Because you said you know what yours was.
Yeah, I just like saying it. Forstikina.
What's it mean?
It's something that stinks.
Yeah,
that
like
stinks.
It's like slangy to me.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna use like, you know, like the way we would use like shit in our culture. You know, it's like, you know, it's shitty.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
So forstikina.
It's in the glossary, I assume.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
of course
yeah.
It is.
Yeah, and I love it. I just love it. And I on one of our first rehearsals, I just kept pressing the sound button over and over and over again because it just made me laugh.
To hear Farstinkina?
Yeah. I'm probably saying it wrong. Am I saying it wrong?
It's Farstinkina.
Farstinkina.
Yeah.
Yeah. Farstinkina. Thank goodness I don't have to say it because I'm saying it wrong. Okay.
Well, that seems as good a place as any to pause this conversation. I want to thank Leah for making the time to be with us this afternoon. She's, like we said, already busily at work combing the mysterious depths of Alistair McDowell's X. But these conversations are important, and if you're listening right now, you know what I'm talking about. I hope you do, and I hope you'll take the time to maybe give us a quick review. You know, your feedback ensures that we build on these conversations and give you the precise sort of content that you're interested in. You can also connect with us the old-fashioned way through email by writing us at behindthebuzz@apublicfit.org. We love to hear from you because otherwise we're just talking to ourselves. And as you hear me say after every pod, there's so much to talk about. Behind the Buzz is a product of a public theater company. It is directed by Anne-Marie Pereth and me, Joe Kucan, and is recorded, mixed, and edited by the perpendicular Diane Walton.
I just want to add a clause at the end. I don't think I have problems with prepositions. It's articles.
Well done. Well done. It is articles.